Hi, everyone, and welcome to Mozenda's webinar series. We have a special guest with us today. Her name is Alex Bruhl. Welcome, Alex.
Happy to be here.
You have been a data analyst here at Mozenda for a couple years now, and recently graduated with your master's and soon to get your doctorate.
That's the goal, yeah. It's pretty fun.
And on top of that, she's a great addition to our webinar today because we're going to be talking about sequences and how to run those faster, specifically when you have a project that you need to optimize.
First off, we're going to go over some terminology that will just help you understand what we're talking about. So we'll talk about what sequences are, what concurrency means, and then what jobs are. And then we'll go over why you should choose sequences and have just a couple suggestions there. And then ultimately go over a bunch of use cases of situations where we've used sequences and can kind of show you the general feel and idea for what to look for and how to know when you should use it.
I really like the use cases. That's probably the part I'm most excited for because we've identified use cases that are similar for our customers when they're building projects so that you can optimize even when it comes to troubleshooting agents and dealing with potential CAPTCHAs. So first things first, let's go over the terminology. We have our sequence. A sequence is a workflow for automating tasks inside Mozenda. Some of those tasks would be running an agent, clearing a collection, publishing collection, deleting view items, update a value field, and running a sequence. Those are just a list there. We'll go more in depth of what each one of these can do. If this is your first time even viewing sequences, this may be new thoughts to you overall, but we're going to go through each one of these and how you can use them.
And then a job is a unit of work that needs to be done. The possible types of jobs are you can run an agent, publish a collections data, package downloaded files, or just like background maintenance that's going on. For the purpose of this webinar, we're only going to be focusing on the run agent job. So whenever we refer to a job throughout this webinar, we're referring to the run agent job.
And that's important because one of the main benefits of sequences is your concurrency, which is the number of actions you can run at the same time. And having a concurrent job is the ability to run agents concurrently. If you want more information here on the Help Center, there's more information on where to find your concurrency as well, what, if any, domain restrictions are applied there so that you can optimize the job concurrencies and run agents more efficiently. So to find it, you'll log into your web console and that account dashboard, which is on the very first page, you'll see your account section and concurrent jobs listed just below. So I just opened up our web console, and up here at the top is listed sequences. Sequences is available for our enterprise customers. So if you don't have this, please call us and we'll be happy to figure out a way for you to experiment with this as well. We have some sequences that have already been created. If you're new to sequences, the way that you'll get started is by clicking New Sequence. You can title this whatever it is. We have ours specific to an agent group. Maybe we want all the ones that are scraping Wikipedia to be in the same group, or those on Home Depot. Or if I have a more specific use case, like I want all of these to run in an hour, or all of these to run on Monday, then I can configure those as such. So once I create my sequence, I'll be given the option to select to either run an agent, clear a collection. As I select each one of these agents, I'll be given the option to either divide this or set specific error handling here, which will go more in depth. Once you add your agent to the step, you can configure these just like you would in normal agents, where you can schedule or you can set up specific notifications of when it starts, when it fails, or if it completes successfully.
Okay, so now we're going to dig into why you should choose sequences. And so there's mainly these three reasons. So with sequences, you can increase the concurrency of your agents, aka you can run 2 agents or more side by side each other, or within a single agent, you can run lots of different jobs if it's going through various pages.
I love that example because there was a customer we were working with where they had an agent that was getting 1,000+ items, and they were running it all at one time. And in order to get all of those results, it was taking them a couple hours. But by putting that into a sequence, they were able to split it up so it was 5 jobs running at the same time within one agent, which means they got their data 5 times faster, and it was published in still one format. So that helps the whole entire process overall. We want to gain more time back as well. Yeah. So I'm glad that you mentioned that for finishing faster.
Yeah, awesome. And then the 2 other things is just automating a workflow. Georgia already talked a little bit about this, in that you can start with maybe you have an agent that pulls websites, and then you have a second agent that follows that one that loads those websites and pulls data from them. Well, this allows you to do those sequentially. And so you can make sure that that first agent finishes before moving on to the next agent. And then lastly is you have some additional settings you can set to allow for more specific error handling that can apply broadly to the agent or publishing or whatever as a whole.
So we're going to talk a little bit about those use cases and how they relate specifically to finishing faster, automating, and optimizing. First things first, we have our concurrency and speed.
For an example, we're going to go over some IMDb navigation. So hopefully this helps you understand where sequences can apply to you, right? So you can see this and see how these pages navigate, and then be able to take that and understand if this is the right use case for you. So anyway, furthest on the left, you have a list of genres, and say we're looking to pull all of these TV shows from IMDb and pull the ratings of every episode. And so in this case, I loaded to just the comedy genre, but in my agent I loaded each of these. So there's actually, for example, just 9 pages of these. And then if we go to the next thing, you have a ton of titles, right? Like almost 1.5 million titles that we're going to need to load. And so I can create URLs for each of those. And so that in and of itself is 2 agents.
And how did you know you could load URLs for those? Are you speaking specifically for the numbers as in the title, or as in the number of pages that we're going through?
Yeah, so my first agent chooses the genres, and then my second agent took the 1 million+ titles, divided it by 50, and then was able to create a URL with that through just simple math, and kind of having an input list that knows that instead of it being start 51, it has start 101, has start 151. So each of those, so okay, I can just load those pages.
So yeah, you're able to identify in the URL that it's showing 51 items.
That it starts at number 51.
It starts at number 51. Mm-hmm. And so by using that index, you created custom URLs that did the math for you. So your next URL will start at 101.
Yeah.
And then from there until we have all 1.489 titles.
So that was my O2 agent, the second agent that ran in the sequence. My third agent pulls each of the URLs. So where I have Scrubs circled, then it's going to go to the Scrubs URL, and then loads each of the seasons. And then my fourth agent was actually the seasons page where it has the list of episodes. And on those list of episodes, I'm able to pull the information that I'm looking for. So I have 4 agents that are running. I have no idea how long these are going to take, but I can use a sequence to say, okay, as soon as the O1 finishes, the first agent finishes, do the second. When that one finishes, do the third. And so, and in my experience with Mozenda, sequences are everything for this, because it's rare that I make any agent that doesn't require a second agent to run most efficiently. And within each of these, we can run multiple at a time, right? So instead of being stuck just running one job that captures all of these, that loads each of these TV series. I can have, in the case of this account, 10 agents running concurrently that are going and loading each of the series, but different subsets of it.
Okay, let's take a look at it a little bit, because I think it's important to see what we're looking at.
So for this IMDb TV series sequence, I have this Need for Speed sequence. And here are the 4 agents that I have running sequentially in here. And you can see by this numbering on the side that this goes first, second, third, fourth, fifth. And we'll go over what it looks like to publish or to have things run simultaneously in a sequence in some of the next overviews. So the real thing that helps you with speed in this is using this concurrency. This runs concurrent jobs. So when you add a step to run agent, and then I'm running IMDb, it gives you the option to divide the source. So since I'm loading URLs from the preceding agent, I can divide that into however many concurrent jobs.
So since we have 10 allotted on this account, we could say 10 and then it would split it into 10. And if I said I wanted to run 20 jobs, then it would start by running 10 once those completed, then it would run the next 10 after that. So based off of that restriction, you'll just need to follow those parameters.
Yeah, and a lot of domains have limits too. So we make sure that the websites that we're scraping from are not receiving too much traffic, especially from Mozilla. So
if there's not a limit or a slot available for that website, your job will go into queue, and that's to protect the website.
Yeah, exactly. So on these, I have this very first, or I guess second agent is dividing the first agent's data into 10 concurrent jobs. And then I actually go up from there, where I go to 100, and then at least on our side, I've always learned to never go over 200. And even though it's not like ever going to run those 200 jobs simultaneously, by breaking it up, it allows you to kind of have a better understanding for maybe where issues are at and what's going on.
So maybe you don't hit an issue on the first item, but on the 800,000th item, then you do.
Yeah. So this first agent's going to run super quick because I want to show you how it ends up splitting the jobs. Go into agents.
Yeah, and so the agent structure of that.
Yeah, so first off, there's this O1, and all it's doing is capturing a genre and then a URL. It just like we showed in the presentation. And then, so that's refreshing. And what this one is going to do, and I'll open it in the agent builder.
Because I think this is amazing to see. When I was building agents or just starting to build agents, my mind was blown when I saw that you can take another agent and put that into another part. And it makes sense as far as keeping your agent simplistic, because if I just have an agent that its only job is to get the URL, then identifying if there's an error becomes a lot easier. And then if my next one is just loading those URLs and getting the title list, that's also easy. So this indexing, sometimes that pops up for people. And at least for me, the first time it popped up, I was like, okay, get rid of it. Like, I don't know what's happening. Let's just press go away. So what is that?
So we use index as a means of error handling and like being able to know where things are going wrong. So like Georgia mentioned, you may not know if like your 9th agent failed or your 9th index failed, so the 9th item in your list failed, or it was the 800th item in your list. And so what this allows you to do is identify and find what the issue is. So if we go back to the web console, now this job is running. we can look specifically at these 10 jobs that were created and see what index that job is on. So this is going to just be running index 10 and 11 from the initial list, or the list that came in from the agent before.
From part 1, there's like item 1001, 1002. So it's just taking that first number 1, 2, 3, 4, like this restart index and item number over on the right.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what this is. This is saying right now I'm on restart index 1. And so that is letting us know that if I wanted to find out if this agent errored out, that I need to go to 1, the very first index, to find out what the issue is, right? So this one is
rather than like trying to guess where it's at.
Yeah, exactly. So this one is at 6. I can just go here and say, okay, well, what's my issue? Test agent, start, and do 6. And it'll load.
And it chose the 6th item
from the list.
Awesome. Ooh. Do you have request blocking on? That's beautiful.
And we must have request blocking on.
Or I might. So we're going to remove that request blocking by file settings. And even though it's brought down here to level 4, I'm just going to bring it down to level 1. When you do put your agents into a sequence, it will apply level 1 request blocking just to help with efficiency. So test it out first with auto block level 1. We're going to start over and test and use that same index of 6. And you'll notice that the format of the website alters just a little bit now that we've removed that request blocking.
Yeah, so in this case, I actually did end up using a page list instead of creating a list with the URL. But the most efficient way and fastest way would be to create a page list from the URL.
And I believe we have a YouTube video on how to do that. So if you guys have questions on page lists, it's on YouTube.
Awesome. So yeah, so I mean, this is how the O2 works. It's loading from our O1, separated into 10.
For begin data list.
Yeah.
I think it's so interesting to see. So we did input data list, and we chose specifically from a collection.
Yeah, so I can just show you how to do that just right here. So, right, you go to input list and then from a collection. And ideally, you'll have a special view created to make sure that you're always going to be loading a URL. And then I'm loading. So, for example, there's this clean view right here. I'm going to make sure to load that view instead of just the default. So,
in your view is you've created a filter on your data set where it removes any blanks.
And then I can right click here and look at properties. And one thing I want to make sure is that these are included all the way through. So
meaning that they don't just die with their the agent that was created. We put them into this agent.
Yeah. So if I don't include them right here, then the view created and collection created from won't have genre or the genre URL.
So to add those, go into your additional settings, select the green plus sign, and then when you select multiple fields, hold down Control, and you can select both of those. Press OK, and then that will include them in your field list.
Yeah.
If you want to include an index parameter, you'll just do percentage signs and write index.
Yeah, exactly.
And then click Save. And then you'll need to create an action to load that specific URL.
And see, you'll notice that the genre URL df is between percentage signs, saying it's the parameter from the attached data set.
I love that. So it's referring to this field name, saying anything in this column, make sure to load that. Love it. Okay, let's check out the other parts of your sequence.
Okay, exit out of this whole number. Okay, so let's see how these are going. All right, we already had one that finished. That's awesome.
I like that it tells you the duration as well, when it started, when it ended. And now that we have those 10 and that one completed, it's going to kick off another one, right?
Once it finishes all of these.
Okay.
But what I could do is say, okay, I just, maybe for some reason you're really needing to push through just some or any or a sample of data. So I'm going to pause all of these. And what that will do, and you can do the same from your sequence. So in the need for speed, when this says running, you'll have the down arrow option to select pause from here. And then there's an option where you can actually start from one of the other agents.
So you can choose to, if I want to skip that one, I can choose to run a different agent.
Exactly. Cool. I'm just gonna wait for this to be paused. And then does that pause everything? When you hit pause?
No, not audio.
Oh. Oh, so it'll just like freeze the screen, whatever it was. Okay. Oh, sorry.
I'm not mad. That helps, because then I can just go back and I can see it's paused.
Okay, so here it's paused now. And one thing that's kind of frustrating, but it has its reasonings, is if I only wanted to cancel one of the jobs within the 10 that we're running, that's not possible from a sequence. So in a sequence, it's kind of an all or nothing.
So I would need to, if I did put it into a sequence, it was split. I need to cancel all of those that have been running and then run it individually at an agent level.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
But I mean, for the most part, when you're using a sequence and when you're running agents, you want the whole thing. So it's kind of a rare use case that you're like, oh, actually just cancel that one job. But say for some reason, I only wanted that one data thing that had already finished. I can cancel this and then start from this 03, which is going to take, yeah, that's that start at this step button. So if I click that, what it's going to do is load from the 02. Oh, it's actually, oh yeah.
Just it's information it already got.
Yeah, so it's only gonna load these 80,000 items and go through the TV URLs on these.
But we need to like pause for a second, because the fact that you have 80,000 items and you just ran this, what, like 5-10 minutes ago, not even, and you have 80,000 items now.
Yeah.
So that increases your efficiency big time, especially when we're getting thousands and thousands.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like you go from running, so think about how long it takes you to maybe like click next page repeatedly on a web page and to click into each link and to load all of that. But think if there were like 10 of you doing the same thing and doing different segments of it, it's going to be 10 times as fast.
It's like Henry Ford making an assembly line.
Exactly. This is your assembly line. So for the 03, I had it create 100 concurrent agents. Okay, so as we look at this, we're going to go to the jobs, and I just want to show you how it's like splitting the index, right? So
it gives you a description of which items it's going to be searching, filtering through.
Yeah, so like you can see, so it looks like we actually captured more than 80,000 rows in the last one. It just, it probably just hadn't loaded all of them yet. So we can see here that each of these is doing about 1,500, 1,300 agents at a time, somewhere between there. And
1,300 lines from the previous one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So all of these are queued because we've reached the we've reached our like concurrency limit. But if we go all the way back, we can see, oh, we already have some agents that are airing. So something's wrong with those ones. Have these 6 that are running. And a lot of times I'll make sure that it postpones a few times. And Georgia, well, we'll go over that more in the next use case. But
so let's see if there's a specific error for those that you have right now.
yeah.
So it said element not found, CFX unhandled error. The website could not be reached because of an unknown error.
Yes.
And it could not be found on the page. So those things could be due to load time. Maybe it needed a little bit more.
Yeah, so honestly, I might just resume this one because it might have just loaded the page in the non-perfect way. And then if I want to look at the specific error going on here, I can see it's at this index, so 30,478, or I can just click fix agent, right? And that will take me directly to that index. But if I was, say, going over a bunch and had
it makes it so much easier though, because it lists all your indexes, because then you can just open it up, type in the items.
Yeah, so
then having to test through,
hit fix agent on each of them. Yeah, because that's usually what I do, since when I usually have an agent error, usually there's a lot of agent errors. So because there's like this one down here, there's this one up here.
One of my favorite examples that was shared by a services team member, and this was before we had sequences, so he had to start running an agent at 5 p.m., 6 p.m. when he left from work that day. And then when he got in that morning, that's when the agent would be finished. It took a while to run, so he ran it when he was at home. And when he got in to the office, it had stopped because of an error, and it just stopped, which is good because we want to fix errors. But if we are able to split it, then there's a greater fault tolerance. So if it would stop at that one item, but we would have other items that would still be able to continue. So the whole entire process wouldn't be halted. It would just have that item be stopped and the rest of them could continue going. I loved that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Saves so much time.
Yeah, that's another super helpful thing with splitting is exactly, instead of being stuck because you have 100,000 rows of data that's going through and it's only one job, instead of stopping at 50,000 and leaving 50,000 more, you split it into 10 jobs, and then you have one job that stops at 50,000, but you have all of the 90,000 other rows of data, instead of being stuck with 50,000 rows of data until you can continue running it. So sequences are so important for when you're when you have a need for speed, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know why this aired, because now it's not airing, but
that's cool.
Yeah, it wasn't finding genre. So
if you loaded the index, you could see that it wasn't hitting an error, that it's okay.
Yeah. So then I could just go back here and hit resume, and then it'll put it back into the queue. So the timeout, probably just gonna hit resume.
So I want to have it attempt a couple times.
Yeah, exactly.
If it keeps hitting it, and if it does, then that's a good indicator. And if it's just one item, then I can go in and find out what happened.
And if you're aware, you can do some of that here where you check this box, and that will postpone it 30 times for however long you decide, right?
So
and then
doing it, just if it hits an error, it's going to stop for a second, then attempt again.
Yeah, exactly. Which sometimes it just needs to do because it's either on a weird like server, or it's just flukes, right? I mean, I feel like that happens to me all the time when I open a web page and it's like doesn't exist, and then I reload it and it's there.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about additional error handling options you can set in sequences, but I think that's kind of the gist of this one, at least.
Yeah, so the main objective for these is being able to take one agent, feed it into another agent, or divide your agent into as many parts as needed by using an input list. And when you do have a list that allows you to split your agent to run more quickly and run those jobs at the same time.
Yeah, also super helpful is to see, the like percentage right here,
Oh,
right?
it's so satisfying.
Yeah, and additionally, say you have a report that's due at the end of the day, you start it in the morning, and at noon you check it, you can know exactly, I mean, not exactly, but get a general idea for when it's going to finish, right? Because once it hits 50%, you assume the like other 50% is going to take just as long as the first. So super helpful for just kind of knowing what's going on a lot better.
And also keep in mind, you can set these to run up on a schedule and have your notifications as well. So if you need them at a certain cadence, that's available. Next, we have our pit stops, which is more handling job errors. When you're running your agents in a sequence, I have these running where part 1 feeds into part 2 and part 3. They do hit an error, and I want to know specifically with this site. This site has a lot of navigation, and I need to account for a lot of that to fail and to push through. So in order to do that, we talked about how you can identify it specifically from your jobs dropdown. So in my agent, where it hit an error in part 2, I opened that agent up specifically, selected jobs from the data dropdown, and saw this error list that we've walked through with Alex as well. So let's take a look at that agent specifically, the custom settings we set in place for the harvesting. And if you're new to harvesting, one of the ways I like to think of it is your harvester is a way for you is your personal assistant. So anything that you tell your harvester to do, it's going to behave in that way. If I want my cup of coffee every morning and they're out, do I want them to let me know? Or do I ask for a specialty item and I just need them to keep asking the right person in order to get it? What does that look like? So here I have my part 1, part 2, and part 3. Here on my part 1 agent, we have the city input. I'm dividing it into 10 concurrent jobs. And for the error handling, I'm automatically resuming when it errors a job 8 times. Now this is a multiplier, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So in the last part, we mentioned like in the settings on the agent, there's that checkbox that says postpone for, and then usually
it's like 1 minute or 5 minutes.
Yeah. And I usually just leave it at a minute because
I don't want to wait longer.
Yeah, exactly. Like I want it fast. And so, but some websites might be more strict or flaky or whatever. And so what that does is that's going to postpone it 30 times until it actually errors. What this does is multiplies that 30, in this case, by 8.
Okay.
I have never put more than like 2 or 3 in there. 3 is usually what I put in there, because usually if it's erroring more than 90 times, then there's something weird going on. But I mean, it also really just depends on the website.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a case of a website where like 1 in 100 times it works, so it needs to be higher, or 1 in 1,000 times it works, so it needs to be higher.
One of the only reasons I've ever had it be higher is if I'm trying to bully through CAPTCHAs. Because when it's resuming and it's attempting again, it's using a different IP address. And so by putting it a higher amount, then I'm choosing to use a different IP address and hopefully get through that. Again, we don't have power over CAPTCHAs, but this is a way that we could attempt to mitigate that.
For sure.
So I love that. So 3 is the golden number. If you're trying to work with CAPTCHAs, which this is what I'd recommend, is setting up your agent to be in a sequence when you have a website that is more prone to CAPTCHAs. If there's something more specific where you know that it's going to hit a website error or a specific error and you just want it to ignore, you can select that specifically from this dropdown.
So I've never used the dropdown, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, me neither.
So
this one I added, it was hitting because of an error. This website is, you have to use a back button and create a lot of different URLs, and so having it automatically resumed helped quite a bit. We're gonna go look into this one to see what exactly is happening. So I have it set to 10. We don't have this automatically resuming. So we're just going to save that so it can attempt that in the future.
And something just to note is Georgia's able to save that because with the error status, it's in a paused state. So if these are running, you can't change the settings for a step.
That is very good to mention. So here I'm going to go to our dash part 3. I was messaging our team members. I'm like, think of the fastest thing you can think of. And the only thing that they could come up was the train, flash, and dash. And I just really, they need to spice up their creativity here. So here from the jobs, everything has hit an error, which I wanted to show this example because this is sometimes our reality. Like, what is happening? We don't know. Everything's hitting an error. And so it says HTTP forbidden. It could not be downloaded because access to the web page wasn't. Ooh, the suspense is killing me. Was forbidden. So we're going to select this. So to me, that means, okay, I'm thinking maybe there's a CAPTCHA, maybe I got blocked, and it just doesn't like that. So I noticed that the index is 2440. I'm going to click Fix Agent and have this open. Yeah, I love, there's many times when we're doing these webinars, and I love when it hits an error that we don't expect, because agent building is hard and it takes practice. It's really powerful, but you have to be willing to invest in it. Okay, so let's look at this. This is loading a URL of availabilities for hotels. Selecting a room, there's a pop-up that comes up, there's a rate list that we're collecting, and then a third rate list. It's a very complex agent. You'll notice that because this website has so much content, we've added some additional wait seconds, and we've allowed for Ajax to completely load. And to do that, you can right-click, go to properties, and add those onto each one of your pages. So I'm going to click Test My Agent, Start. I didn't enter in a parameter because I didn't have that index as a parameter in my begin data list. So we're going to see what this looks like normal. This would be awful. So let's stop it and add that in. It will still be applied if we just add index, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
yeah, just add the index parameter to the begin data list. Yep.
So we're going to Properties, Additional Settings. You can see we're pulling all of this information from the other agents. Then here we're going to say index and save. Then when we test our agent, we'll start over. It will ask us for that index. I believe it was 2440, right? I don't know.
That's what we'll see.
Look. Yep, 2440.
And something really good that Georgia did here is you'll notice on at the very beginning, she has the if error, go to this page. So right where the mouse is, the 3 in the page. So that means if.
And it's set as optional. So it's like if it doesn't find the room and it hits an error and isn't able to progress forward.
Yeah, and then it's going to jump down to this page 3 where it's looking for something in the text that's saying this doesn't exist. So that's really good because sometimes errors actually belong there, but then that error handles to the 4th page, which is going to make it just like stay in an error status unless it finds what it's looking for.
And I'm looking at the data to see if we have any that have this error message, because that would be a good view or filter that you can add onto your data. It's to say, if it does have an error, let me know and email that to me, which I love. Specifically, if out of this data set, I decided that if I don't have an honors discount, I don't want to include it. So I'm just going to copy this default view, meaning I'm going to take all of these headers that were selected, and I'm going to call this honors. And for my criteria, I'm going to choose honors discount and is not empty. This is adding that filter, and I can use this in my sequence to publish. So now all the honors discounts are showing. This item did work. I was able to get the information. So I'm just going to resume my agent because I know that it has some pretty, it's pretty tricky when it comes to errors. So we enabled the postpone, and we have, or not the postpone, automatically resume. So we'll resume all of these rather than resuming per job, which is probably a best practice that Alex did when she was on the agent specifically. She went into each error job and went in and then chose to resume from there, but I just queued them all up.
Yeah, so that was the difference between these situations though, is since I was like watching that agent and it had jobs still in the queue and still running while there were other error jobs, the only way I could continue those error jobs was job by job. However, since like everything was errored, continuing it from the sequence is like totally kosher and good. Yeah.
So here in our error handling one, I'm going to add another step. It's still running right now, so we're not able to modify the sequence because it's already in the process. Let's add it here on our Monday morning sequence, where I want the data of honors to honors discounts to be sent. So I'm going to say publish a collection, and I'm specifically going to choose the dash, and there's going to be, oh, it hasn't completed yet. That's why it's not showing yet.
The view.
So never mind. We'll save that for later.
Yeah, I could actually show it on the IMDb sequence. Well,
that's what I also love is we're categorizing our agents based off of similarities that they have to each other, but you can do anything in a sequence. So even though you're running IMDb, if you're like, okay, part of my process is I want IMDb, then I want Home Depot, and then I want all of this information published, you'll have that available to you, which I love.
Yeah, so you can see I already have this publish step here. And hopefully it lets me look at settings, right? So I have, you know, what part of it to include, really just the normal settings that you see in publishing.
And this is where I would choose the honors section, is right underneath that view.
Exactly. Yeah, and then, you know, the file format and then where you want it published. So, kind of nice, yeah.
Okay. Let's jump into one of our final use cases, which is how to optimize each lap as well as get on the podium. And I love that phrasing because speed is key, right?
Yeah, so first we're gonna go over running agents together and then also running sequences together, right? So sometimes you don't really need things to run specifically.
Now say that.
Oftentimes you don't need things to run right after each other, but you need them to all start together. So I have these two sequences created, one for different agents and one for different sequences. So let's look at different agents first. And so, for example, I have these 4 agents that are they're going over streaming websites, so like video game streamers, and say there's some information I want from each of these, and then I want them all to publish to me. So I created a combined collection.
Perfect.
That combines all 4 of these.
So it takes the data from Mixer, Twitch, YouTube Live, and Vimeo, and puts them into one data set that's sent to you.
Yep, exactly. So if I were to run this, it's going to start these 4 agents together.
Because they're all labeled number 1.
Exactly, yeah, you can see on the number on the side. And then once all 4 of them finish, so if any of these erred or if there was any issue that kept any of these from finishing, it would not publish that combined collection.
And that's what we want, because you don't want to have it publish information if you're missing a piece.
Yeah.
So that's why you have them all labeled as 1. So it won't move on to step 2 until all 4 of those complete.
Yeah. So you would be well aware of you would know if there was an error, and thus could kind of decide if you still wanted that information or kind of what you were looking for, if that makes sense. And then I completed this with just clearing those collections, because just in case you're trying to be careful about watching your storage and not going over, you can just clear those after everything's run, because ideally you have all of this information now published to you, and then just clear it so you're not taking up any of your storage.
And you don't even have to think about it. You've already set it up. Like, get rid of all of this. I already have it, send it away.
Yeah, exactly. And further, you can set some scheduling to say, okay, I want this to run every week. Every Sunday, this is going to run. And that's it, right? So like,
you don't have to think about it as much.
Yeah, and that way all 4 of these agents start together, and I don't have to go to each individual agent and set these settings.
Yeah.
So maybe right now I want them to run every week on Sunday, while maybe next week or in a month or in another quarter, I want it to run monthly, right? So,
and going in and updating all of those, it takes time.
Exactly. And if you forget one, then it's like you're missing data, or you have, I don't know, the wrong data. And so, yeah, you definitely.
That's one of the benefits, is you can put all the agents into one location with the same schedule.
For sure. And another thing that's super helpful is, I don't know how aware any of you are of notifications, but I often set notifications on individual agents, and then I have 100 jobs running, and then I have 100 jobs error, and I'll have something checked that says, okay, as soon as a job errors, sending email, and then I end up with 100 emails from Mozenda.
We don't want that.
Yeah, so this allows you to kind of check these things, right? So if I start these, like I said, maybe Sundays at noon, and I don't receive an email that it's like moved on to the next step, or that I do receive an email that it failed to start, like all of these things, then I can know something's wrong and be able to go in and fix it.
So it consolidates all of the individual notifications to overall process.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Love it.
So yeah, so those are the different agents running together. And then in a lot of cases, like I mentioned, most of the projects that I build require multiple agents to kind of go through a list of URLs and then pull information from those URLs, et cetera, et cetera. So I may want to run various sequences together. So this is just an example of where I have a run: tomato movie reviews and IMDb movie reviews and Google movie reviews. And I want all of these sequences to run together, because each of them is going to require a list. And so
each one of those has like a process. So if
So one thing to know though about this step specifically is the run a sequence step exclusively means start a sequence.
Okay.
So it won't, if I like added a publish step after this to publish each of these, it would publish the wrong information, because what it's doing is it's starting all these sequences and then it moves on to the next step. So it's not going completely through the sequence until these sequences.
Okay. So with run a sequence, the one thing to keep in mind is that run a sequence is just start a sequence, meaning that once, so for example, if we had this different agents here, once I said run different agents, as soon as it kicked off this first step and said go, then it's moving on to the next step, meaning the next step in this sequence.
Yeah, so
if there's any dependencies that you have with these sequences with a step you add after, so if I say publish and I say publish Google, it's probably going to hit an error because it would need the data from this sequence in order to publish that information.
Exactly.
So make sure that there's no dependencies between your run a sequence actions as well as and the next steps that follow.
Yeah, exactly. So for example, say I wanted this run different agents to run before any of these ones did.
So this is a different example. So this is changing the order of your agents to run.
So I could hit run here, and I know my different agents is probably going to hit an error. So what this is doing is it's starting my different agents.
As soon as that starts, then it's going to kick off.
It'll immediately start the other.
Got it. Great. And that was really cool. I want to show everyone how to do that if you have this running. Great. So
yeah,
it says
so that's started. And then if we go back to different sequences, that step is done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, cool. That makes much more sense. So then what I really like that you showed, and it was kind of tricky. So if we go to our hourly sequence, I have these running at the same time. I just want to show you how you can make those run together. So I just went and removed those. If you want to run these at the same time, select the ones that are important to you, more, and run these steps concurrently. So now is the time for any questions or answers. One of the questions that we had that came in was specifically about agent structures and what's the best way to structure your agents when you want to use a sequence if you don't have a list. So having them in a sequence, I think one of the benefits is, even if you don't have a list, is that you're able to manage it in one location and add multiple steps to the process. I guess best practice for your agent structure is try to build an agent where it's accomplishing one job, whether that's getting the URL, getting the information on one page, and then get the URL to the next place. And that's been one of the biggest benefits there. But any questions or feedback that you guys have as far as what sequences are, what you can do to optimize them, please let us know. Here in our Help Center, there is some more information on how to create a sequence, what a concurrent job is, and splitting up our agents. The next webinar that will be posted will be about our agent structure, so tune in for it next time. Thank you so much.